Hello, my name is Eric Peterson. I serve as Senior Vice President for Policy at the Afterschool Alliance based in Washington, D.C. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our After School for All Challenge for 2024 and how you can reach out to your member of Congress and senators to make the case for the importance of after school and summer learning programs from areas that are not in Washington, D.C. Next slide. These are the things that we'll talk about today. What is the After School for All Challenge, and how can you take action from outside of Washington, D.C.? We're going to talk through several after school and summer learning policy issues and asks that you might want to make to your members of Congress. We're going to talk a little bit about leveraging social media to take action as well. So the After School for All Challenge has been around since 2001. It did take a short hiatus during the pandemic, but it is back, and it is two parts, really. One part is the in-person event, where we'll have about 200, 250 advocates from around the country, young people, parents, after-school and summer learning providers, state-level after-school network representatives, and other advocates who will come to Washington, D.C., meet and talk to their members of Congress and congressional staff and make the case for after school. Part B, which is what we're focusing on here today, is the After School for All Challenge from Afar, or something that you can do from the comfort of your own home or your own program or within your own state or congressional district. The After School for All Challenge from Afar takes place for 1 week. All 50 states are welcome to participate. We anticipate hundreds, perhaps thousands of advocates raising their voice over the course of the week in June 2024. The After School for All Challenge really exists for two main reasons. Number one is to allow after school and summer learning advocates, providers, parents, young people, anyone with a vested interest in the importance of after school and summer learning programs to really establish a relationship with their elected officials and staff. This can be done with staff there in your district offices near your own home or your own program, as well as for Senate offices. Most senators have multiple offices in their state, so with the staff in those offices, regional directors, local staff for members of Congress and Senate offices. The other piece to this is really getting after school and summer learning issues on the radar of those elected officials. And in addition to federal officials, this can be done for local and state officials as well, whether it's your mayor, your county officials, your school board members, or your state representatives, governor's offices, and other elected officials throughout the local, state, and federal spectrum. And why do we want to do this? Because we know that after school and summer programs really make a difference for young people. The impacts, whether it's from academic success, increasing school day attendance, supporting youth mental well-being, providing those foundational skills that young people need so much for success, not just in school, but really throughout their entire life, college and career readiness, prevention of risky behaviors, so many outcomes and impacts that these programs have that have been well documented through 2 decades of research. But unfortunately, too many members of Congress and or the public don't understand all of these different positives and outcomes. So this is an opportunity, while you can do it year round, we like to focus at least 1 week during the year, in this case, the week of June 10th, to really reach out and get after school and summer learning programs on the radar. We're going to talk more about these 4 bullet points around what we're emphasizing this year in terms of after school and summer learning. And let's jump into it. The context. So right now, as this is being recorded in late May, early June 2024, there's a couple things going on in Congress. Congress is about to come back from a recess. They are well in depth into the fiscal year 2025 appropriations process. Appropriations committees on the House and Senate and their leadership have recently, on the House side at least, set spending levels for FY 2025 that are actually for the education spending bill, looking at a 10 to 12% cut from last year's fiscal year 2024's levels that just passed a couple months ago. What does that mean? That means that for local programs that serve low-income families that really rely on a need to leverage federal funding through the 21st Century Community Learning Center, through the Child Care Development Block Grant, through AmeriCorps, through other federal programs, it means in spite of increased costs and increased demand from families and young people for these programs, that funding could remain stagnant or potentially decrease. And that's why your voice as an advocate for after school and summer programs, whether you're a provider, a parent, or any other stakeholder, is critical to make the message count, that members of Congress understand and know how important these programs are. In addition to the appropriations process going on, we are in the midst of an election year. And this November, every member of Congress and a third of Senate seats will be up for election. Anytime we have an election year, that does increase the partisanship. And it's important to remember that after school and summer programs have always been a bipartisan issue with strong support from both Republicans and Democrats from both the House and the Senate. And therefore, this is a great time to emphasize that bipartisan nature and the wide impacts that after-school programs have in so many communities and for so many families nationwide. Finally, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, reauthorization recently passed the House of Representatives. The Senate Health Committee, which is the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, will be taking up that legislation likely in the next few months or sooner. And that legislation, which only comes up to be considered by Congress every 5 or 6 years, sometimes longer, includes important Department of Labor programs that support youth workforce development. We know that after school and summer program is going to have a huge impact in terms of providing young people with the skills they need to be successful in many different careers and in many different workplace settings. Even going all the way to elementary as well as middle and high school, that after-school programs can help with career exposure and career readiness and more. And so again, the context for what's on the minds of members of Congress this week, another good opportunity to make the case for after-school and summer learning in the context of youth workforce development. And next, let's talk about different ways that you can reach out if you're not coming to Washington, D.C. for the After School for All Challenge, and how you can still make your voice heard and make a difference. 3 main ways you can do this. The first is, as I mentioned earlier, district or state or Senate office meetings or calls. So most members of Congress have multiple offices in their congressional district. Most senators and you will have at least one representative for where you live or for where you work at your program, and you'll have 2 senators. Again, most of these senators and members of Congress have multiple offices. You can easily go to their website and click on their office or locations tab and find the one nearest you. You can reach out to that office and either schedule a meeting where you go in and talk to the staff or the member if they happen to be home sometime in June or this summer, or do a phone call with staff. You can schedule that ahead of time, or you can just do a cold call and someone will be there and take down notes and make sure the member of Congress and their staff and their education policy staff are aware of your concerns and know that you reached out. You can also do a site visit, reaching out to the member of Congress and to their schedulers and inviting them or their staff, their education policy staff or appropriations staff, to come out to your after-school program. You can do this whether you're a program provider, a coordinator, director, or if you're a parent or a young person, talk to your program a director and coordinator and suggest that maybe it would be great to host a member of Congress or their staff at your site. This gives staff or the elected official the opportunity to sit in the seats next to students, talk to students, hear what's on their mind, talk to parents when they come and pick up their children. It allows them to talk to the staff themselves and really see what the activities look like, what a typical day and after school program looks like, what meals and snacks are healthy meals and snacks are being served, what STEM activities, science, technology, engineering, math activities, robotics, drone building, arts, music, whatever the activities are going on in that program, in addition to academic support and help, it allows the member of Congress to really firsthand understand what a program looks like. Or if they can't make it, again, their staff who are critical as well. And then finally, my colleague Maria is going to talk about this in just a little while. But you can also, if you don't have the time to do a site visit or to have a meeting or call with your local congressional office, you can always email them or use social media to reach out. So how can you be effective in your advocacy? Number one rule is to be flexible. Understand that members of Congress have many different issues, many things on their mind, and they may not be able to come out to the program if you invite them. Don't take that personally, but continue to, again, build that relationship and invite them again in additional times, perhaps for Lights On After School later in the fall or during back to school season or another time of year. Make sure you get on their mailing list so they get on your mailing list rather, and you get on their mailing list so that you can send them information about upcoming events and they hear and see if you have an email newsletter or other communication outlet, what's exactly going on in your program. Remember, staff are an important audience. Again, if the member of Congress can't come, they rely on their staff to let them know what's going on with different issues. Staff are likely the ones who are reading legislation, who are advising the member of Congress on things that they should support or to be aware of, and therefore developing that relationship with education staff or health staff in a congressional office is key. Your mother was right. Say please and thank you. Politeness, friendliness, courtesy is so important in anything in life, right? But particularly when you're talking to congressional staff, regardless of how you may feel personally about their issues, it's important to do bridge building with congressional offices and to be really a resource and again, build that relationship. And you can't do that unless you're friendly and polite. You're the expert, whether you're a young person who's in a program and have first-hand knowledge of the impact these programs have on your life, whether you're a parent that understands that when your child is in a program, the opportunities that they're getting and how important those are, whether you're staff of any level at a program, or a pediatrician that sees the students that they are in programs and the difference that programs make on young people's physical health, or law enforcement. So many different fields are champions of after school for so many different reasons because of the wide range of positive outcomes and impacts. But bring that expertise to the meeting. Understand that if you don't know the answer to a question, you can always get back to that member of Congress or their staff, but also understand that they rely on you for letting them know how programs are running and what those challenges are, what additional supports you may need, the importance of funding to make sure that all students who need quality after school and summer learning opportunities are getting those opportunities. Finally, stay on task. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted, but make sure that you're emphasizing the importance of after school. If you have data about your program, always good to bring that up, but always make sure you make an ask around the need for increased support from Congress, even in tough challenging funding times, making sure that they know that these funds are critically important to families and young people in your community. Remember, you're building a relationship. The after school story, again, you're the expert. You want to tell them, always good place to start to walk through what happens in an after school program, what a typical day looks like. Does it start with snack? Does it start with homework help? What activities are young people engaged in? What project-based learning? What hands-on experiential learning is happening? How are you using things like arts and music and science and STEM to reinforce the lessons that were learned during the school day? How are you not replicating what happens in the school day and just doing more school, but in fact, really making learning fun and helping young people make that connection between what they learned in the classroom and connecting it to the skills that they need in sort of real world, real life situations. We have a couple of bullets again that we're going to now do one slide each on 21st Century Community Learning Centers, the Child Care Development Block Grant, Workforce Innovation Act, and STEM, Science, Technology, Education, and Math. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the After School Caucus and Lights On After School. So let's jump into those. 21st Century Community Learning Centers has been around since 1998. When it first started, it was a bipartisan effort in Congress that passed legislation. It was embraced by President Clinton at the time. 40,000 students participated the first year. Today, 1.4 million students every afternoon this school year participated in a 21st Century funded community learning center after school or summer learning program. With summer just starting in many communities, 21st Century Community Learning Centers also is key in supporting and funding those summer learning and summer enrichment programs as well. The outcomes here you can see on the slide are pretty clear. In addition to academic outcomes and really getting young people engaged in learning, helping in terms of reducing chronic absenteeism for students that participate in quality after school and summer programs, particularly those funded by 21st Century Community Learning Center. So you have the well-being and sort of social emotional outcomes in addition to the academic outcomes that come from these quality programs. But the challenging part here is that not every young person who wants to be in a 21st Century funded program has that opportunity. And that's because while funding has pretty routinely gone up since it was first started in 1998, with the exception of 1 year when there was a decrease. Unfortunately, particularly in recent years, funding has been stagnant and it hasn't kept up with inflation. So that right now we're just under $200 million lower than the FY 2014 level. And therefore, as costs go up for whether it's supplies or transportation for school buses to get young people home after the program, food costs, or staffing costs as well, it's really critical that funding keeps up and that we're able to continue to offer programs to the students who are in programs now, 1.4 million, but really also start to address the incredible demand, knowing that 25 million students nationwide would be in a program, according to their parents, if one was available and accessible. And many of those families are low income. 21st Century Community Learning Centers would go a long way if there was adequate funding provided and helping meet that need. The next ask here is the Child Care Development Block Grant. The Child Care Development Block Grant, for many congressional offices, the first thing they may think of and their staff may think of is infants and toddler care. And in fact, Child Care Development Block Grant does provide support to low-income families for childcare for infants and toddlers up through age 5. However, it also, since the beginning of the program, more than 10 years ago, does also support school-age children, so ages 5 through up through 12 and when they turn 13. In fact, 45% of all children served through the Child Care Development Block Grant are school-age children. Unfortunately, sometimes at the state or local level, some of those policies don't always accommodate after-school and summer programs that and make it difficult to tap into these funds. That said, this year, again, we're asking for additional funding for the Child Care Development Block Grant to help meet the need, as well as continued support for school-age programs, after-school and summer programs, to be able to better access these funds and again, make those quality after-school and summer learning opportunities available for more students. And next, the Youth Workforce Youth Workforce Readiness Act, rather, is bipartisan legislation that really could be incorporated and be part of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. As I mentioned earlier, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, bipartisan legislation, passed the House earlier this year, and the Senate will be hopefully considering it later this year as well. We are asking advocates to ask their members of Congress to consider co-sponsoring the Youth Workforce Readiness Act, which is bipartisan, bicameral legislation. That means supported by Republicans and Democrats in both the House and the Senate. That would create and really put into law a competitive grant program that would allow out-of-school time organizations to receive funding to provide youth workforce readiness programs for youth going all the way down to age 16, or sorry, age 6, all the way up to age 18. So that's elementary, middle, and high school. Obviously, the programs that are designed for high school students look very different than elementary, but we know it's really important to start exposing young people from early ages into what potential careers and opportunities they might want to do when they grow up, and also really working on those foundational skills that help young people develop the skills that they need to be successful, again, both in life, but also in the workplace. And next, we're going to talk a little about science, technology, engineering, and math education, or STEM education. The National Science Foundation and its STEM education director, unfortunately, had a funding cut in fiscal year 2024. And we're asking that funding for the STEM Education Directorate and the National Science Foundation be maintained, that there not be a cut in the upcoming 2025 fiscal year, because we know STEM education is so important, and the National Science Foundation is critical in helping support the research and the infrastructure that helps after-school programs address and implement STEM, informal STEM education in their programs. And finally, Lights on After School and the House and Senate After School Caucus. These are two things that you can raise if you have time, whether it's in a phone call again, or in a district office meeting, or if your member of Congress or staff comes out to visit at a program. Remind them that there is a bipartisan after school caucus in both the House and the Senate, and you would love for them to join. It's just a way that they can make it known that they are supportive of after-school programs. And then finally, Lights on After School, which we hope all of you participate in again this year, joining 8,000 or 9,000 programs around the country that really shine a light and hold events to show that programs are making an impact in their communities. And inversely, also, we know during this time where where the lights are off and where there's need for additional support and for additional programs. The Lights on After School is a great way, again, to help build that relationship with congressional staff and let them know that they can come out, see a program, talk to students, talk to parents, and participate as well. Next slide. Just a couple of resources before we get into a little more detail on the social media and digital piece. We do have a digital action toolkit. There's a site visit toolkit on our website at afterschoolines.org under Taking Action tab that will walk you through, again, templates on email language to reach out to help schedule a site visit. It has sample agendas for what a site visit and schedule for a site visit might look like, in addition to templates for thank you notes and more, and lots of tips and tricks from programs around the country that have had successful site visits with members of Congress. We also have state-specific data, fact sheets that you can share in your meetings or use as talking points for your calls, as well as more information on the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, Child Care Development Block Grant, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and STEM education. And with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Maria, who's going to talk a little bit about ways that you can take action and raise your voice digitally. Maria?
Thank you so much, Eric. So I'm so excited to share. And social media is a great tool to use during the After School for All Challenge to help you amplify your after school message and reach your policymakers from home, as well as bringing after school into the public eye. So if you're joining the challenge from home, here are a few ways to take the challenge and reach your members in Congress. Next slide. So the first way is to send a message directly to your policymakers. So if you head over to 3to6.co/Congress, you can enter your name, email, and zip to reach them by email, send them a tweet, or both. So if you look over to the right, that's what the screen will look like for you once you head over. And we offer some pre-drafted language that you can easily use as a starting point or edit and add as much as you like. And then once you click tweet, you will be taken to your X/Twitter account, and it will populate the social handles of your members in Congress and your crafted message for you to publish. Next slide. And for publishing on other platforms or to simply customize your message a little bit more, we have a few tools available to help you do that on June 10th and 11th. So to find your rep's social handles, you can head over to 3to6.co/lookup for a handy tool that will provide the handles and links to your rep's X/Twitter account and Facebook handles. So when reaching your policymakers, it is important to note that X is still the platform where a majority of your reps will be most active, but many have profiles and public pages on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn that you can tag. And our digital action toolkit is where you will find a ton of sample social posts and language that you can use or customize to help you reach your policymakers with the message that resonates most and amplifies the need for more after-school opportunities for your community and state. So alongside the sample language will also be some social media graphics that you can download, key data that you can use to support your story, and tips for crafting the most compelling message, whether you are an after-school student, a parent, after-school professional, and more. So with that, we want to say that do not forget to include the After School Works hashtag. This is where the After School for All Challenge posts will be under. So we will be using this hashtag, other challenge participants, and other supporters from home. So by using this hashtag, we can see your message and amplify it, and you can amplify other messages from folks in your state or even your community. So these tools are available for everyone, so please encourage your friends, family, and other after-school supporters in your life to share how after-school has made an impact on them by either heading to 3to6.co/Congress to send their own message, or inviting them to send a social post to their reps as well with the tools mentioned above. So no matter the medium, together, all your messages are making a difference in our rally for sustained investments in after school this June. So we now hope you have the tools you need to take the challenge with us on the week of June 10th. So with that, I will pass it back to Eric for closing remarks.
Maria, and thank you everybody again for joining us. If you have questions, if you're looking for more tips on how to reach out, if you are interested in additional research around what the impact of after school and summer learning programs has been historically and the importance of these programs, always feel free to reach out to myself. My email is on the screen. And again, thank you, as Maria said, for taking action, for raising your voice about these really critical programs and the critical support that Congress can take in ensuring more young people have the opportunity to access after school and summer programs. Thank you and have a great day.